Hi, Walter Box on the Box Rock and Celluloid Bot Brat for short. I'm Edward Box. So I've been doing great album openings, bad openings. Let's look at great enders. I've got 15 tracks that end albums that I've picked out that I think are really top. What's really good about a great ender is it just reminds you how great the album's been, really, and an album that finishes well will encourage you to go back to the start, but also to listen all the way through. One of the problems now is albums are front loaded. They tend to be arranged for streaming purposes or for people to get through the first however many tracks. Back in the day of vinyl, when you flipped over the side, albums would tend to be a journey, and often the two sides of the album would be different moods. And this is, regardless of genre. Obviously, I'm a metal rock fan, and it's interesting. Sometimes side two could be more commercial. Sometimes it might finish on an upbeat track, or sometimes it might finish on an epic. There wasn't a certainty about how an album would finish. Interestingly enough, recently I bought the Rock'n'Roller remix by Judas Priest, and what struck me listening to it is, like, although it's not a particularly necessarily well regarded Judas Priest album, although it is getting more love, is how well sequenced it was. And it finishes with a short instrumental, Caviar and Meths, which, it's not a great track, but it was. I realised how nice the album felt with that finishing. It was just like a mellow play out for the end of the album. So you listen to the album. Remember, these albums now, albums can have loads of tracks and be very long. That started in the CD era. And now with streaming, it's content, so albums can be very long if you choose to listen to the whole album. But back then, albums had to be kind of not much more than 40 minutes due to the size of the grooves of the vinyl. So you just get a lovely listen to fit on the side of a C90 cassette, 45 minutes, and it's easy to put on and get through the whole album. But anyway, let's look at some great enders. I've started with Judas Priest there, and I'll pick. Judas Priest have always had great ending tracks. Island of Domination off Sovereigns of Destiny, Distant Aggressor, they're fucking incredible. Either of those could have made the cut. Steeler off British Steel, Devil's Child. Some people seem to be on a downer on that track. I love it. Just absolutely fantastic. One Shot Glory off Painkiller, track that's really coming to me heart. They've always done really good ending tracks, but my choice I'm going to pick is Reckless. Now, this is off the Turbo album. So Turbo is an interesting album, and aside from very controversial, it opens and ends with infinitely the two best tracks on the album. I do think it's a good record. Maybe Priest had no business doing hair metal, but Reckless is such a good track, and I think what's interesting about it is a lot of the guitars have quite a processed sound on Turbo, which kind of works for the technological aspect of it, using the guitar sims. But Reckless, if you actually listen to the track, for some reason they cranked a lot of bottom end on it, probably on the desk, and it's just got this massive fat guitar sound and loads of clarity, a great riff. And then it comes in into the perfect balance of being like a commercial track, hair metal track, but having the heaviness. Really great vocal by Halford, great chorus, and a fantastic solo from Glenn Tipton. What's weird about this track, it was touted for the Top Gun soundtrack, so Top Gun approached them maybe about using this track. I think what happened was it couldn't have been used on the album. This is where Priest really dropped the ball, but it would have been a brilliant track for Top Gun, because it really fit the mood of the film. So that's like my choice. I've kind of gone for a slightly more obscure one, but it's brilliant. The next one I'm going to go for is, this is a track that for many years it'd come after like this band's greatest track and one of the greatest tracks. So you might tend to not ignore it, but I've had the best track. But the more time goes on, this track revealed itself to be absolutely kind of showing off every skill in that band to brilliant fashion. It's Light in the Black on Rainbow Rising. So Rainbow Rising, of course, only has 2 tracks on side 2. Light in the Black's just up-tempo, brilliant interplay in the middle section between Tony Carey and Richie Blackmore. Tony Carey, I mentioned on the Tara Woman opener, as an opener, amazing keyboard player. And then just when you think it's over, Dio does this amazing bit of vocal improv at the end. So, I see a star. Absolutely brilliant. Just what a brilliant ending track. Next one is an album that is chock-a-block through of incredible tracks. I think there's only one track on this album where I would say it's a good track. It's not an amazing track, it's a good track. That track's Little Dreamer. I'm talking about Van Halen 1. But Van Halen 1 finishes with On Fire, which is just such a great song to finish on. It's literally saying almost like the band's on fire. It's almost like the record's starting again. You know, we're on fire. It's not over yet. You know, there's more to come. Fantastic riff. Fantastic guitar work by Eddie. Ross vocals are great. Brilliant. My next choice is an obscure one. You may know that I like Frank Marino, and I particularly like his Power of Rock and Roll album. Now, the Power of Rock and Roll album finishes with the track Ain't Dead Yet. If you've not heard Frank Marino, check out this track. It's absolutely brilliant. It's a really good sort of kind of anti sort of corporate rock and roll song, very much, you know, from the kind of Vietnam hippie era lyrics of Frank Marino, you know. Really good, so fitting him in that kind of Hendrixy vibe, but a kind of up-tempo rocker. It's got fantastic lead breaks in it, but it breaks down into a middle bit where he just does a really quiet tapping bit. And the drums by Jim Iommi are really good. And Paul Harwood, the bass player, you know, he had a really good three-piece. I think Vince Marino plays rhythm on the album as well. But they're just grooving. It's really good. And then he comes out in the middle section with a top face melter. And the final part of the song finishes with a really good turn-to tapping bit. So Frank Marino is one of those guitarists who, you know, got on the VVH bandwagon. Okay, I'm going to do this turn-to tapping thing. And basically all the guitarists did the same kind of pattern that EVH did, but he managed to do something really cool with it. And then it finishes with like a kind of sound of piano wires being touched and strings being scraped. It's just very atmospheric. It's really epic, and it's a great ending track. Check it out. Next choice is off a masterpiece by Black Sabbath, and it's Sabbath Bloody Sabbath's Spiral Architect. So I remember the first time I heard this track, I thought, how have I not heard this track before? This is so good because it's quite proggy. It's almost got a bit of rock opera quality, like The Who. And it's just infinitely one of the best Sabbath tracks ever, let alone the best album finishes. I mean, I could have picked Into the Void here, Fairies Wear Boots, The Writ, which is a fantastic track. But Spiral Architect, you know, it wins hands down as just a brilliant ending track. Next choice is a track I've bigged up before, an album I've bigged up before. You know, this album gets kind of better as it goes along. It's like improves with every track. So on this album, the second to last track is my second favourite track, and the last track is my favourite track. It's Mistral Wind off Dog and Butterfly by Heart. Incredible atmosphere. I think I've said before when I reviewed this album, it kind of takes me away. It's like I'm on the ocean. It's like I'm waiting for the wind to take me somewhere. It's got a storybook quality. It's like Ann Wilson has written like a short story about a mariner, a sailor. I love it. Beautiful, really odd sort of riff. Incredibly epic, lovely phasing, lovely flanging on the mix. Just captures a perfect band performance. And this is the last track that the classic Cart lineup will do. Obviously Roger Fisher will go, and then we'll get out a 5-piece. So this kind of it's kind of ending of a whole era. Next choice I'm going to pick is an interesting one. It's by Queensryche. Queensryche, like a lot of bands, do great ending tracks. Roads to Madness off the Warning album. I Will Remember, beautiful ballad off Rage for Order. And of course Mindcrime, it finishes with Eyes of a Stranger. But I'm picking Anybody Listening off Empire. And I think the reason for this, I'm picking this, is this track finishes, it's epic, and it's more of a typical Queensryche track. Empire's quite a commercial album at times, and one of my criticisms of it is sometimes it's a bit, you know, it's a bit like, oh, I've fallen in love and that. And what I like about this track is Queensryche remind us, hold on, you know, we're going to write a song about, you know, the corporate machinations of the industry, and we're going to have top samples, we're going to have a top Lydian progression. It's going to build up, it's going to be epic, and I think this is a great finishing track, and the way it has like the birds at the end and all these samples of Seattle is really good. It's a track that's easy to forget, but interesting. Again, Empire's one of those albums that finishes really strongly for me with two of my favourite tracks, One and Only and Anybody Listening. One and Only was always one of my favourite tracks. Anybody Listening's kind of grown on this. It feels like the album really needs this track. Brilliant. Next up is go for some hair metal. Obviously, one of the greatest hair metal albums, glam metal albums, we're going to call it that, is Wrapped Out of the Cellar. And what's interesting about this album is how strong it is all the way through. It has only two filler cuts, I'm Insane and She Wants Money, and they're actually really cool tracks with really good guitar solos. But it finishes with Scene of the Crime, which shows all Rat's skills at taking sort of great meaty metal riffs but commercialising that. It's got a great chorus, because the chorus almost does two things. You've been caught at the scene of the crime. Catchy bit. You broke the law in the first degree. With those great Juan Crucier backing vocals. Just really good trade-off solo. It's got a really interesting intro. It's probably the longest track on the album, but it's just so good. Another hair metal, glam metal example again. Wrong to call them that, really. They weren't that at this time, and it's a heavy track, and it's off what I think is Dokken's best album song-wise too for now, and his Turn on the Action. So the second to last track is Alone Again, which is a kind of Dokken ballad classic, and prior to that is its filler track, Bullets to Spare, the track everyone kind of forgets, but it's actually a really cool track. Turn on the Action's just got such a great Lynch riff. The lyrics are ridiculous. I'm like a wild cat at midnight, I'm like a stick at dynamite. But what I like about this, it just finishes with that party vibe. Don Dokken on the Beast from the East album, he says, "Sometimes you've got to do a song that has nothing but loud attitude. It's time to turn on the action." And that's what it's like. Lynch plays up a storm with a Cook and a Face solo, Mixolydian mode. It's got that little cool kind of diminished run, chromatic. It's a hard riff to play that. Try learning it. It's really good if you play guitar. Love Turn on the Action. Now Submit, a real mature power ballad to finish an album. One of the band's greatest songs, with a fantastic outro solo, and it's Wingers Heading for a Heartbreak again. Winger are going about all the time. They get knocked, they got kicked down at the tail end of the glam hair metal thing. But Heading for a Heartbreak is such a great piece of songwriting. It's mature, the instrumentation's great, the production's great chorus, cool middle solo by Reb, and then it's just got this really angry sort of almost atonal, cool whammies at the end. I remember a friend pointing out how great the solo was. Somebody's pick up on things, and he was like, "Oh, that solo at the end of that Heading for a Heartbreak, Reb." And you listen to it, and you're like, "Oh, he's really doing something different. He's really kind of in a moment." So I love that track. And my next choice is, I can just see one coming up, and I'll pick that at the end. And this is a weird one, is Spellbound off For Those About to Rock. So For Those About to Rock is, it's in that difficult position. It comes after it comes after 4 immense albums: Power Age, If You Want Blood You Got It, Highway to Hell, and Back in Black. And they're in that difficult situation where they're trying to beat Back in Black, and they don't succeed. But that album starts with what is, for a lot of people, the best track, For Those About to Rock. And it's got many other good tracks, but Spellbound's a kind of real hidden gem in DC's catalogue. It's getting closer to that almost ballady feel, minor vibe that you get on Let Me Put My Love Into You and so on. But I really like it. It's really good. It's very atmospheric. Guitars are good. It's got a good groove. And it's really good. You can pick a Whole Lot of Roses, another great DC finishing track. I think for me, I've just heard it too many times. Kicked in the Teeth is brilliant off Power Age. But Spellbound, I think, deserves a special mention. Then my next choice is Saxon. Again, Saxon's a band who knows how to finish an album. Dallas 1PM and Eagle has landed being two superb choices. But I've always thought it's a deeper cut that they don't play live enough. But Machine Gun off Wheels of Steel is fucking fantastic. This could well be my favourite track. I've always loved this track. It starts brilliant with that chromatic, and then the Cop Lick by Paul Quinn. It's really heavy, and I love Biff's lyrics. It's that classic thing where he's trying to put you, I'm guessing, I would put it as a World War I story, the early days of a Gatling gun, machine gun, going over the top, just getting caught in the fire. I don't want to die, machine gun. And it's got that down, it's just relentless. And again, it finishes with that big explosion, that cacophonous ending. I just think it just finishes the album so well. And it's one of the reasons Wheels are still such a good album. And the next choice is one of the great finishing tracks, along with Spiral Architect, Light in the Black. It's one of those tracks that's so good. And this is a definitive track. It's maybe the greatest track this band ever did. It was maybe going to pick this as my fave ender, but I'm going for something else of all time. But this is Love to Love by UFO. takes you on a journey. You've got that amazing harmonised intro that I think Schenker did on like a reel-to-reel and they flew it in. That's when they took the reel-to-reel tracks and flew it into the 24 track. Imagine this album's recorded on 24 tracks. It does that, and you got that brilliant keyboard line, bam, the power chord, the brilliant nylon string thirds, which is in 7/8 time. Then it goes into 3/4. It's folksy. It's I love how Phil Mogg gives you that almost plaintive, wondering minstrel style vocal, I guess. And then you got that epic ending, which is really big with the orchestrations, of course, that immense solo. It just stops dead. It's so dramatic. Brilliant. Another final great ending track. This band has a kind of mixed bag of endings, but Black Rose is one that stands out as a brilliant ending, but this is Emerald. Brilliant track to finish the Jailbreak album, and one of the definitive Lizzie tracks. I think with this, it's in the 12/8 time signature. So what's interesting there is Phil Lynot's taken a typical time signature used in Irish folk music, but they've used a pentatonic scale to make it rock. And this it's such a big influence on Maiden and things like that. You got that brilliant harmony breakdown, the brilliant outro solo at the end where Robbo and Scott trade off, and that's really when they come of age on this album with the harmonies and the brilliant trade-off guitars. So a brilliant finishing track, all-time classic. So my favourite ending track of an album of all time, and it's Diary of a Madman. So if you remember, one of my great openers was Over the Mountain, and I just think Randy Rhoads, it just shows his genius on this, the compositional quality of this track. From the way it's got that beautiful intro, a guitar piece I still play regularly just for enjoyment. Then you've got that amazing staccato riff. Ozzy's sort of ethereal whining vocals work perfectly for this. Great lyrics by Bob Daisley, screaming at the window, watch me die another day, brilliant. Randy does that really mysterious solo again. It's kind of off-kilter, I love it. Beautiful middle section with just beautiful guitar part by Randy, and then the amazing bit at the end with the brilliant sort of Omen style choir. It's just brilliant. I mean, it's, I've put it here, it's beating out some amazing stuff here, but I think it deserves it, because I think it really stands alone as a masterpiece in how to end an album and in how to compose a great epic. Okay, so that's my great album enders. We're going to do bad enders next, so I'll see you soon. Remember to share and subscribe. Thanks very much.